This is a book review of Only the Paranoid Survive by Andrew Grove. What is this book about? This book is about navigating inflection points, paradigm shifts, game-changing moments, 10x changes to the environment businesses operate in. Andrew Grove was the third employee of Intel. In the 1970s, Intel were primarily a memory chip maker. But in the early 1980s, Japanese companies could make high-quality memory chips at cheaper prices. So Intel was faced with a 10x change, a fundamental change to their business model and their prospects going forwards. They had to change tactic, they had to change strategy. Instead, they became primarily a producer of microprocessing chips. And this was very difficult. People in the company were very reluctant to change because they had enormous success in memory chips, and they identified themselves, their company, with the former technology which had made them so great. Andrew Grove said it took him something like 18 months to first of all recognise that they needed to change, they were going to lose, and that they needed to shift resources, shift focus to where they were more likely to succeed in the future, which was in microprocessing chips. It was very common in the late 1990s and the early 2000s to go into a computer shop and see the little blue and silver sticker, Intel Pentium 4, Intel Pentium 5, which was the processing chip. And that's what most people associate with when they think about Intel. But he has written this book to address business leaders, management personnel, people at the heads of companies, to inform them what they can do to organise the company such that they can recognise when large changes are about to take place and what to do about them. One thing he advocates, for example, is listening to people in middle management, in the sales department, people on the front line of the business who are trying to sell the product, because they will be the first to realise that reality has changed, the environment has changed, there are new competitors on the new market, customers' behaviour has changed. So leaders shouldn't just dismiss feedback, complaining. They should take it on board and listen to it, because it's highly likely to be valuable, and it will help them to separate noise from signal. One of the chapters is about recognizing big changes, the types of change that could potentially put the business out of business. So, for example, when I was a kid, it was common to see Blockbusters and shops that you could go to rent VHS tapes, DVDs, video games. They no longer exist. And they no longer exist because of the internet, because of Amazon. One can easily buy second-hand DVDs, VHS, video games from Amazon, and Netflix. People can pay for a subscription service and they can watch films on their beautiful screens, on their laptops, on their mobile phones. So this has completely changed the game. Cinemas are finding it very difficult because now people can just sit in the comforts of their own homes. Companies like Cineworld, they're finding it very difficult because customers' behaviour has changed as a result of developments in technology. So these companies are faced with fundamental challenges. Another example might be when the government introduces a new law or a law is changed. So, for example, smoking has become much less common in the UK because the laws have got much tighter, stricter. They've put taxes on cigarettes, for example, which make them very expensive. And so if you're a cigarettes manufacturer, you're finding it increasingly difficult to sell in the UK and other countries as well, as a direct result of regulatory framework changes. So these are examples of 10x changes. One thing that Andrew Grove does talk about in the book is allowing for experimentation, allowing for criticism too, and having a culture in a business, in a workplace, which encourages disagreements, where people are not afraid to question and criticize the management. He says people at the bottom of the company, people on the periphery, people on the edges, people operating in the real worlds, they should be able to criticize the leaders, because the leaders need to invite feedback, and their job is to sift through, filter out the noise, but there's going to be a lot of value in the comments and opinions and feedback of people working on the edges of the company. And so people should be allowed to have disagreements, have arguments, because that is going to benefit the company as a whole. It's going to make it stronger. It's going to make it more able to adapt. This book is about adapting to constant environmental changes, and in particular the large ones, which could require the company to completely change. He talks about the valley of death. So when a company is going through an inflection point, it can be very scary. But when it's successful, when it's not going through a big change, at this point, he says that leaders should allow for experimentation, people to try out new concepts, new ideas, consider new products which might be successful in the future, to allow them to play. He says a company should be relatively chaotic, to allow for chaos when it's successful. But if going through a difficult moment, then a leader's job is to make the tough decision and provide strong leadership in getting over the valley of death, which can be very painful. He suggests that some companies try to distract themselves. They acquire new companies. They buy new companies, acquisitions, as a way of sort of avoiding looking too closely at their own fundamental bottom line and their own business. But the leader's role, in his view, when faced with a 10x change, is to provide a strong sense of direction and to identify where the company is going to be in the medium term in order to make it survive. He very much sees the world as a highly competitive place. It's kind of dog eat dog, and the company is constantly needing to adapt and survive because it's faced with competition. And this book will help you to, if you are a manager or a business leader. Andrew Grove was highly successful. So you're reading someone with a wealth of experience. He was at the helm for something like 30 years at a highly successful company, which successfully navigated a lot of change in the tech industry. Nothing changes faster than technology, computers in particular. And this book is superbly written because it doesn't contain descriptive word salad, doesn't contain metaphors, similes, poetical language. It's very much pragmatic and practical. It's giving useful advice on how to arrange and organise a company so as to make it more resilient to changes, such that it can constantly evolve and survive. In essence, the book is called Only the Paranoid Survive because it's about having an antennae, sensing changes in wind direction and listening to people in the company, not shying away from the fact that your company might no longer be viable, not sort of burying your head in the sand, but considering all of these possibilities and making tough decisions about where the company will go in the future. So it's an excellent book. I've been very impressed. He wrote another excellent book called Higher Output Management, which is famous for being an excellent business book. But this one's great too. And I'll leave this with you today. Thank you for watching.